I am delighted on so many levels that you're here. So thank you so much for being with us. And I know I want to talk about your time as an IU alum, but first, can you tell us a little bit about your story before you arrived here?
Yeah, that was way back, 1986 December is when I came to IU. My first winter, first snow, that first day ever. I'm from Sri Lanka. I grew up in Africa when I was 4, did kindergarten through first year university, engineering in Zambia. And then came to the States, and Indiana University was my calling.
And so went into accounting at that point.
My father was an accountant, and he thought accounting was the fastest way to get through college before I figured out what you really want to do in life.
But you've said it served you well in terms of being a language that has been your accounting language through your career.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I got the benefit of looking back, and as an undergrad degree, having something that is foundational, that is analytical, that is quantitative, helps, especially in business.
Yes.
And not that other majors can't be helpful, it's just that having that foundation, and accounting is great because that's you learn the subterraneans of entities, business entities. Engineering is another great foundation to have, analytical quant.
Absolutely.
And then you can build on that, and this is what I was able to do with accounting.
And so what was your first job then out of IU?
It was actually a CPA. It was Crow Chizek in Elkhart, Indiana. And I had no idea where Elkhart was, but the partners there came to the great career placement office of Indiana. I think the best.
Absolutely.
And off I went to Elkhart, Indiana. And I remember getting there and saying, well, there's I think at that time 5 stoplights. I exaggerate.
Maybe there were 6. It's grown a bit, but not very much.
Yeah, it was great.
So how did Indiana University prepare you for that first job?
Accounting is amazing. I didn't know this when I came here, and I should have, but I didn't. Accounting is one of the best programs in the country. And I took the Becker CPA review. And Indiana University, undergrad business school trained us, taught us well, and passed the CPA exam, and I think that's from the academic standpoint. But I think even more so than that, Carolyn, it was just this amazing school of people here. This bigger campus was for me, initially a shock. And then I loved it. And to this day, I like big crowds. I like big places with lots of people. And we can talk more about that in due course, because that served me not only in that first job out of IU, but through my career.
Absolutely. So what prompted you to decide you needed an MBA?
Yeah, with the foundational accounting, and I worked for 3 years, I realized that I need the laddered up skills of soft skills, which is something I would encourage all programs, undergrad and grad, to perhaps allocate more of the time in their program too. And if you look at the best ranked programs, it's typically not just the quant.
Yeah.
It's the soft skills.
Yes.
And I know it's weird, when I went to grad school, I wish I'd spent more time on the soft skills. I went to a quant school for grad school, once again, even though, because I wasn't as clear then as to what I should get out of a graduate program. But I would encourage graduate students to think about the soft skills as much, if not more, than the quant skills.
And why would you say that? What's your argument for the soft skills?
Business is a venture of people, game of people. And at the end of the day, there is the exciting part of competing, of innovation, of disruption, but it's all done through people. And one's skills relative to others on the people side tend to get us more responsibilities, more accomplishments, and therefore, if you can learn that sooner than later, it helps.
Well, obviously my bias is in the management arena, so
Yeah.
so thank you. I have to agree.
Yeah.
You went through a number of different roles during your time at P&G,
That's right.
and you've talked about the soft skills being an important component of that, along with the technical expertise that you had. Can you talk a little bit about that career trajectory? What was the thing that kept you getting moved upward and into new challenges?
So I was with Proctor and Gamble for almost 30 years.
Yes.
Many assignments in the U.S. and outside. Along, what was great about the Procter and Gamble career path was the intentional way in which career pathing was done. And there's a matrix of skills and experiences that my managers would say, Suran, now you're going to do this next and this next. And it
Very
was
nice.
thought through for one's development. P&G is primarily a grow from within
Yes.
company. And therefore, the development of people was paramount. It was not an option to hire from outside. There was always the pool inside was the one that was most available for all the positions, all the way to CEO.
Okay.
So along the way, these assignments were crafted intentionally. And then if you were willing to take on new adventures and be a student throughout your career, then what tended to happen is you just learned and you grew, and then you look back and say, wow, I really know some stuff.
Well, which assignments would you point to as being the biggest learning curves, or the places where you really felt those breakthroughs?
The assignments that had the greatest discontinuity. I remember about 5 years in being assigned to the cosmetics business in Hunt Valley, Baltimore, Maryland, Maryland. And, I was away from Cincinnati, where I spent 5 years. And it was different cosmetics business, very, very complex business. And those who are involved with cosmetics would know that it's a very beauty business.
Yes.
And that was a big disruption. Going to China, I was asked to go and head up finance for Greater China. Never been there. I'm from Asia, but Guangzhou, not even Beijing or Shanghai.
Right.
That was exciting, and with our 3 boys, we went, and it was one of the best experiences. If you ask us, where did we enjoy of all the assignments I've had, that'd be one of them.
Wow.
Singapore, over the last 12 years, same.
Right.
Went out there and had not lived there. Great place, paradise.
Yes, it is.
But again, it's an amazing experience. Very different than Midwest, very different than Baltimore, very different than China. Again, I can go on and on, but these biggest changes, and for those I get to advise, if you take the biggest leaps, and when you do, you get the biggest return in terms of personal growth, career growth, life growth.
Yes, I love that. Well, you and I have talked a little bit about 3 things that you believe are absolutely central or important to someone's professional career. Could you elaborate on those for me a bit?
Yeah. In business,
Yes.
Business is a competitive venture. And like in all competitive aspects, sports, one has to have confidence.
Absolutely.
I can double click on each of this, but confidence. Second is capacity. Business is so vast, so deep. You'll never touch bottom, even if you're in it for 100 years. So you have to be a student for life. And the third aspect of business is you have to be a people person.
Okay. I love that.
Again, we talked, I mentioned how business is about people. Yes, even with the artificial intelligence, the digitization, there's still human beings behind the entity, the venture, the innovation, the insights. And therefore, it is imperative that business people are people. And we can click on each of these,
I would love to. Yes.
So let's talk
please.
confidence.
Let's talk confidence.
Confidence. You build confidence. One is not born with confidence.
No.
One builds confidence, and confidence is built through success. And when you're successful, you start believing yourself, and as long as you don't believe too much about yourself and get too big ahead,
Right.
So it's important that one builds confidence, and confidence is from knowing that you're technically strong, you've got the fundamentals, but it's also about, when you're in uncertain situations, which you're in all the time in business,
of course,
that you know that you, more often than not, you're going to make the right call, or whatever call you make it right.
Yes.
Right? Capacity. Capacity is one in which it's the biggest enabler for anyone, and this, I think, beyond business.
Yes.
What we find in life, and you and I can relate to this, is every year, every 5 years, one's career goes up exponentially. One's family situation is exponential.
Yes.
And then one's ability to indulge in passions is also exponential.
Absolutely.
What doesn't change is the 24 hours and 7 days in a week that you had when you didn't have as big
That's true.
a draw on your time.
Yeah.
So figuring out over one's life, how to fit all these three important things into the same day one had when you were 18, when you were 25, when you were 30, is critical. And being a student of capacity is important. And that's how, and we can talk about techniques, and
Yes,
I've
please.
spent hours talking about how to build capacity and how much time we all waste, and how we can extract more. And the third is people. And people, some people think that being a people person is a born thing. I don't agree with that.
Interesting.
I believe that it's a learned thing, like everything else. And yes, how you're brought up and the environment you're in could contribute significantly to the kind of outlook, and it's not about being an extrovert or introvert. Both words work well in business.
Yes.
It is just a preference as to how you get your energy. But whether you're introvert, extrovert, whether being a people person is important, and having techniques and models on how to be a people person is important. Business is about models, and even relationships can be modeled.
Yes. Well, I would like to dive a little deeper into how to expand capacity.
Yeah.
So what would your best strategies there be? I know that's something we're always looking for.
Time study. Those of us who have managed large organizations, and especially production sites,
Yes.
become students of time study, in which say, okay, for every minute, what are you doing, and how's the line working? And there's a concept called capacity utilization, which is total number of hours a machine can work, subtract the downtime need for maintenance,
Right.
and then you're left with the remaining hours. And then you say, of those remaining hours, how many hours can I produce without stoppage?
Okay.
Human beings, the same concept.
Yes.
24 hours in a day, you need your downtime for repairs.
Yes.
It's called sleep,
Yep.
right? And let's say that someone needs 8 hours sleep. So you've got 16 hours of productive time. And then take a timesheet, divide into 30-minute increments, and chart for a week what you do in a week. And keep it simple. There are three things. There is career stuff, there is family, and there is passions.
Okay.
Now, be disciplined only recording stuff when you actually do it, not when you're going to do it. So if you're with
Yes.
family, not sitting in the same house, when you're actually interacting, dinner
Right.
table, tutoring, talking, chatting, that's recorded.
Right.
And it's a bit weird, but when you do, you'll get into it, like all recording.
Yep.
Same with work, just sitting around thinking about stuff. But actually, when you're on the computer or in a meeting, in the office doing something, record that.
Okay.
Not the other time.
Okay.
Same with passions. Not just thinking about going to the gym, but if you're at the gym, if you're on your boat, if you're reading, you're at the movie, these are all passions. Not
Right.
Record the actual time.
Okay.
What you'll find, Carolyn, is that most people, they're only using 30 to 40% of their time.
I can imagine there's a lot of time thinking about what you might do.
A lot of
There's
waste.
A lot of waste in
Waste.
there.
A lot of stuff in which you're like, I'm thinking, but then, and the way you know it is when you look back and say, can I remember what I did yesterday? And most of us can't. If I was to say, okay, let's log what you did yesterday, I bet it'll become an hour exercise just yesterday, much less 4 days ago.
You're correct.
So if you do this, and we do this for machines and plants and all that, it's part of the science of production. Do that for ourselves. And we'll find is that then you start finding out, where am I wasting the most time? Like I found that when I wake up to go to the gym, it takes me 43 minutes. Why does it take 43 minutes to go from the time I wake up to the gym? I realize that I don't, to find my clothes, I spend X amount of time, going through scrolling through social
course.
media while I'm brushing teeth. And I speak for a lot of us, right?
Yes.
So what now do is the clothes are set out in the morning. I wait to go on the social media till I'm in the gym in between sets. And you find that I'm able to get it from 43 minutes to 17 minutes.
Nice.
Think of the amount of time. That's a whole workout.
Yes, it is.
And you look at this and look at things like commute and how much time we waste time on commute. Anymore, I have meetings. When I'm commuting to the airport, which I usually have somebody in the car with me,
Smart.
and we have one-on-ones.
I like that.
And all my commutes are scheduled. And it's a choice. Now, you may find that that's your downtime and you want to just spend music, but think of it. Usually it's a waste,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then if I don't care if there's traffic because I'm having a conversation, I'm being productive. Whether it's on the phone or on
Absolutely.
I mean, you talked about how when you're commuting, you've got books on tape.
I do.
That's very productive.
Yes.
You could choose not to do that and just figure out for the 37 minutes of not do anything. That's a waste.
Yes. Exactly.
So I can go on, but being a student of time, we find that there is endless capacity to be mined.
I love that.
Endless.
One of the things I hear, just loud and clear, is the notion that you never stop learning.
Yes.
There's a student of the world that I'm very much enjoying talking with. So thank you about that. Speaking of, you had talked about the 3 things that can allow you to establish a relationship with anyone.
yeah.
Could we dive into that a little bit?
Some people find this controversial because they're like, how can you model relationships? I submit that we can. One of my bosses taught me this, and over time, and she used a very, an acronym, CFT, comfort, familiarity, trust.
Okay.
And if you can establish comfort, familiarity, trust with another human being, actually with animals too.
I agree.
But let's talk human beings. You find that the relationship is going to be generally a positive and strong one. And I even, suggest to folks to try this with their spouse.
I like that.
Right? What is comfort? So let's talk about each of this. Comfort, familiarity. Comfort, Carolyn, is about commonality. We generally like people who have common interests.
Yes.
And all of us have got no more than 2 degrees of separation and commonality. It could be restaurants, passions, interests, charity, countries you visited, schools.
Yep.
Find what is common. And when you do, there's an automatic conversation, not only that instant, but the next time you meet and the time you meet, and that just builds stronger and stronger and stronger.
That's correct.
Commonality. Familiarity. Familiarity is about frequency. Generally, you like people you see more often than less.
Yes.
Generally, to a point. And so if you can curate frequency, then, and it's intentional, like everything else in business, then you're going to find that you're building a stronger relationship. T is trust. And trust is about doing something for the other person without expecting anything in return.
Oh, I like that.
There's a great book called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. And I think you may teach this. It's a negotiations
Yes,
book.
absolutely.
It's an absolute tome. It's one of my favorites. And I learned, that the concept of, if you can do for somebody way before you need their help in any way,
Yes.
and not have an expectation, and even the other person does not know about it, the equity and the credits that you're building around you without even knowing is amazing. And can you imagine when a person finds out that Carolyn said this good word about me, or there's a compliment paid, or there's something where, when you go into a new neighborhood, people come with, a goodie and just say, welcome to the neighborhood. These are all things in which we build a relationship based on trust. And it's there, and it's all around us.
Yes.
It's a matter of practicing with intentionality.
Yes. I am sensing a very strong undercurrent of empathy in everything that you're saying, that it's about how making the other person feel comfortable and appreciated.
Yes.
How would you coach someone to develop empathy if they felt like that was hard for them?
I think the first thing is just to, like everything else, making it a habit. So when we meet a person, and if you don't feel you're empathetic enough, and perhaps none of us are, we can always do better.
Of course.
Is just stop thinking about yourself. and think about what's other person's values, what's other person's background, what makes them so special, and think of it as, I sometimes say, why do their mothers think they're that special? If you ask her, like, why does my mother think?
Right.
She doesn't know what I do. She doesn't. She's afraid that I fly too much, and just the probability of falling out of the sky is, and she knows, understands about probabilities that this is just a matter of time. But there's something. So if you can understand the other person like their mothers would, I think that's a start.
Oh, I love that.
And then try to understand the other person, the journey they've been. We've all been on a journey, each one of us,
Absolutely.
a unique journey. If you can understand, you'll never understand the full thing, of course. But if you can understand enough about the journey, where do they live? What school do they go to? What is their family life? What are their values? What are their passions? That's a second step.
Absolutely.
And the third step is when you're having a conversation, try to stop thinking about yourself.
Okay.
Just park it and think about what is it that you want out of the conversation, out of the interaction. Make you feel like you're the center of this conversation, of this 5 minutes, this 30 minutes. If you can do those three, and only those three, you're on your way.
I love the advice that says really parking yourself and thinking about what's happened.
Think of
with the
how many
other
people
person.
when there's a conversation, they're not really listening. They're listening to respond.
Yes, they're waiting for you to be quiet so they can say something.
So they're thinking.
Exactly.
They don't really understand what you're saying or listen to what you're saying. They're just thinking about what's going to be my response, what's going to be my. And these are things in which if you can, I don't think you'd ever fully eliminate it because it's human, and we are human.
Yes.
But if you can find a way to, turn down that and turn up the empathy volume, I think we will be good students of it.
And to bring it full circle, I think that time that we spend thinking about other people and parking ourselves can actually build confidence as well.
Yes.
Because then we're not really thinking only about our shortcomings or the things that we haven't done right.
Well, think of how much we're learning.
But that connection, exactly.
We're just shutting down all this learning from the other person because we're still focused on something we already know ourselves.
Yep.
We can think about ourselves on the commute home, about, when we're at, in the evenings or whatever, at the gym, but the opportunity to learn from the other person is invaluable, it's precious, and it's a waste to pass it up.
Oh, amen, and yes, completely agree. So if you were going to give advice to a graduate student now, just kind of starting their journey, I've heard that you'd like them to make sure that they're mastering something, that you want to make sure that they're developing empathy and developing the soft skills along the way. Is there anything else that you'd say to those individuals?
Yes, and we talked about in the business, you asked about some of the attributes, and those are not only ones, confidence, capacity,
Absolutely.
empathy. Business, and I come from a brand consumer background, so I'm going to use the analogy of a consumer brand. One wants to be an iconic brand.
Yes.
Brands are built over years, decades, and if you're, a P&G brand, 100 years sometimes.
Yes.
Through our relatively short career, you have maybe 30 to 40 years. That's pretty short, considering how long a brand takes to build.
Yes.
Is focus on being an iconic brand. An iconic brand has the following characteristics. It has a clear benefit. You name the brand and you can name the benefit. A strong brand, right? If it's actually a brand that's recognized. The second is a brand has a clear point of difference in the marketplace. The third is the brand has a promise that it always delivers. Okay. And there are other aspects. In fact, this afternoon we'll talk with the graduate students about being the personal brand to get to C-suite.
Yes.
So then, when we look at these elements of a brand to graduate students or anyone, this journey is there are 5 vectors of superiority to a great brand.
Okay.
A great product,
Yes.
great packaging, awareness, retail presence, and great value. Not cheap, value.
Right.
And again, this journey of becoming a great product, which is, real simply, being a great product, having experiences that are unique, having the empathy EQ, creates a great product. But by itself, that's enough, because how many great products But if you wouldn't buy it if it was not packaged in a way in which it is, appealing. And that's why we spend so much time on packaging, and you go to the shelf and you see all this in a retail store as an example. So packaging in a personal branding context is how you're seen from afar and how you're seen when you're close. Afar is before you say anything, people are forming an impression of you.
Yes.
Right? Whether you like it or not.
Yes.
Nearby is when we start engaging. How do you, which is the presentation skills, the writing skills, the presence when you walk into a room, and all that is near. Third is awareness, and this is about how you get your name out there. Business is again an entity, a venture, relative, and one needs to get one's name and brand out there. And retail is how you get others to talk about you.
Right.
And value is how, relative to other brands, there are millions of brands out there, as you know,
Yes.
and millions being produced every year out of great institutions like Indiana University, is to make sure that relative to the marketplace, one is providing the best value. If we can get these vectors of superiority to be relative in the marketplace, then I think bodes well for one's career.
That's wonderful advice. And what I like about it is the practicality of 5 things that you can work on as you're walking
It's a model.
through this
I
process.
talk about models.
And models
Relationships,
are useful.
personal branding, and we can talk about models across many other places.
Well, the reason they're so useful is obviously you remember them. The mnemonics are great.
You're right.
But there's also a sense of empowerment when someone breaks it down for you like that says, no, I can do this. I can accomplish this. And so it very much feeds back into the confidence.
And you can focus on different vectors at different times.
Absolutely.
You don't have to try to be the best at all 5.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anything we have not talked about that you wanted us to touch on today?
Again, I am jealous of you having an impact on so many people here. I'm
It's
glad
amazing.
to be a small part of it. I think those who aspire to business, if one is a student of the game, constantly learning, constantly creating capacity to learn,
Yes.
and also, if I was to leave one advice, is balance. Balance is important. People often ask me, my CEOs, do you want me to drive top line or bottom line? I say both. It's balance. And for the person who is starting on the journey or earlier in the journey of a business career,
Yep.
and frankly any career, the balance of ambition, career with family, with passions is important.
Yes.
And one needs to be able to do all 3.
Yes.
If one does one or 2 of the 3, I'm not sure one's going to be entirely happy. And it is important. And the way to do it, my experience, is to be okay with not being perfect.
Yes.
Perfection is the number one reason in which one doesn't achieve all 3, because you just run out of capacity.
Yes.
But if you're okay with 80 for 20 across all 3, maybe you can't make dinner every night with your family. Maybe you don't hit the gym, and maybe there are weeks you don't go, and maybe that meeting or that presentation was not your very best. Be okay with it and just study, be a student of how you can be better.
That striving for perfection gets in so many people's way, and
really
I
does.
very much appreciate that that's where we've landed. Thank you.